Well, welcome everyone. My name is Josh Neuroth, and like Galen said, I work at Ankr. You guys want to introduce yourself?
I'm Alex Glukowski. I'm CEO, co-founder of Matter Labs, the company behind zkSync.
Hello, everyone. My name is Vasilis Giogas. I am the Web3 strategy and business development lead for Microsoft.
Yeah, so we're excited to be here today. We're going to talk about some of the ways we're working together, how we think the market's going today. A little bit about Ankr. We're one of the largest RPC node infrastructure staking as a service providers out there. Any given month, we have 50 million unique IPs that use our RPC endpoints through our customer endpoints. So I think there's 400 million or so crypto users out there. So we have a good chunk of the market on that. And we've been growing like crazy. We support almost 30 different chains now on Ankr. And one of the interesting things that I think what's happening in the market is, there's a lot of different RPC providers, which is amazing for the community. We have definitely seen kind of like the RPC provider side, we've effectively become like a developer hub. And I think the RPC providers are now functioning almost as an onboarding experience for developers, because one of the first things a developer needs when they want to get into the ecosystem or when they're building an ecosystem is they need a high quality endpoint and connection to the blockchain. So we're excited to be working with Microsoft. We just had a big announcement where we're going to support node infrastructure on Azure. And we've noticed one of this really interesting thing, I think the last 18 months. I was here at ETH Denver last year, and it was just, you started seeing like more and more traditional enterprises announce that they had Web3 strategies. But since then, we've seen this massive movement where really almost every company has a Web3 strategy or is looking at it, wondering how they can participate. And so we recognize that at Ankr, and we also recognize that these companies already have established infrastructure on Azure. They already have their teams on Azure and other clouds, right? So that's kind of where we see the partnership going. So maybe Vasilis, you could talk a little bit about, you guys have many resources at Microsoft. You could have built your own Web3 infrastructure, but why did you guys partner with a project like Ankr?
Yeah, Josh, it's a good question. And I would say there are multiple reasons. Some of them are that we are approaching and we are entering the Web3 space with a very humble and learning mindset, right?
Yep.
So we want to learn from leading Web3 native companies like Ankr, like zkSync. So we try to identify partnerships like the one we announced a few days ago as both as a learning opportunity for Microsoft, but also as a way to provide the tools and the infrastructure that our customers need. So just building on what you said, every day we receive signals from our existing enterprise Web 2 companies that they want to enter Web 3. Microsoft's mission is to empower every person and every company in the world to achieve more, and we can do that through node infra, and all of them, most of them, want to enter Web 3. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty much a summary of the reasons. There are many other reasons, but I would say learning, humble mindset, and at the same time empowering our existing customers.
Yeah. So what are some of those signals that you see? Like, what are they looking at when you hear this? Like, you guys probably have one of the best perspectives on the enterprise adoption side.
Correct.
Right. So what are some things that you're hearing out there?
It's very interesting. I mean, there is a spectrum of maturity when it comes to Web3 and the Web2 organizations. So there are banks or financial organizations which are, I would say, pretty knowledgeable. So they come to us because we're already working with them one way or another, and we try to shape the Web3 strategy, whether that might be tokenization of an asset, DeFi, crypto, the financial aspect of Web3. But we start seeing more and more retailers, manufacturers, media and entertainment companies wanting to enter the space with NFTs, circular economy, supply chain, traceability. So I know that there is a public discussion on Twitter and everyone about the use case. What is the use case of Web3, right? Believe me, there are many. There's not one. So I believe that next year, hopefully we will all be here again, it will be much more mature and much more stable than it is right now.
Yeah, and the scalability is obviously a concern for a lot of these companies. And my personal thesis, I see the Web3 space, it seems like originally, a couple of years ago, we were looking at that maybe crypto, like we saw payments, and we're like, oh, this is going to be an everyday consumer life. But what's really happened recently is we see almost like this economy forming between applications and apps working with other apps. And fiat is not always the best economic system to work from an application or a machine to another machine. So I think we're starting to see this like shift that maybe mass adoption of crypto, it might be like on a global scale, but we probably won't buy a pizza with crypto anytime soon, or maybe never. But what we are seeing is that applications are working with other applications, and there's economies forming between that. So, from the Matter Labs perspective, what do you guys see with that? You guys are working on scalability and, doing zero knowledge to do it.
Yeah, so what we're doing, to give a quick intro, we're building the zkSync Era, which is the most mature zk AVM. It's a scaling solution that uses zero knowledge proofs for scalability. But we don't actually use the zero knowledge aspect that much. We're not focusing on privacy. We're using the succinct property of this new cryptographic protocols that allow you to prove unlimited amount of computations in a way that makes it very easily verifiable by anyone, by your mobile phone, by Ethereum nodes, etc. So scalability was a topic in Ethereum, in crypto space for a couple of years, but we were this idea of the blockchain trilemma, that you have to sacrifice some very, very important properties of blockchain systems in order to reach scale, such as security or decentralization. But if you do that, then you lose the main value proposition.
Right.
So the zero knowledge proofs is the only technology we have today that completely breaks out of the trilemma.
Yeah.
We can have any number of transactions running in parallel. We can have many chains seamlessly interconnected in one single system. Like I like to call it the Internet of Value, where anyone can talk to anyone else instantly, just like you are on the internet. You're making a call, and this call is guaranteed to cryptographically be valid, and that comes all with the security that is 100% inherited from the underlying chain.
Yeah, one of the things we've seen at Ankr is that developers are very interested in zero knowledge. I think it's going to be the hot topic this year. But one of the things that seems to be the case is that people are realizing that the zk, the zero knowledge strategies, are a way to really improve the user experience of Web3, and I think that will tie into the partnership with Microsoft. Can you talk a little bit about some of the explain it like I'm 5? What does zero knowledge do, and how does it improve the user experience for Web3?
Sure. So we have to begin with the state of the user experience today, which is far from perfect, to put it mildly. So your first interaction with blockchains today starts with a lot of esoteric things that you have to learn about. Oh, this is a seed phrase. I have to put it in some secure node. How do I handle it? Then for my first transaction, I have to pay some gas in some token. I just got some USDC from a friend, but I cannot use it to pay the gas. All these things are compounding.
Yep.
Each of these friction points would be sufficient to kill significant percentage of conversions in the Web2 world, but they're compounding. So you have to go break through these layers of complexities. So what we can do with this new generation of scaling protocols with L2s on Ethereum based on zkVM is you can experiment a little bit more, and you can leverage this very interesting property of zero knowledge proofs that the computation becomes abundant. You don't have, unlike Ethereum, where you have a block with block limit, and then everyone competes for the space in the same block, which makes the supply fixed and demand rising exponentially, leading to prices also rising exponentially. In the case of zero knowledge proofs, you're only paying for actual computation. Yep. So what matters is that you have a lot of GPUs, a lot of computing power with clouds, or maybe decentralized in the hands of the users through using technologies. And then you're only paying for actual amount of computation you need. And that's going to be cheap and flat.
Yep.
And so you can build really interesting experience. You can build account abstraction that is very affordable, and you don't have to bother about secret phrases. You just log in with your email and password, but you still have full control over your account. where you can delegate some of your friends to be your guardians to recover it. You can pay in any token. You can do a lot of complicated things under the hood, hiding this complexity from the user without incurring unsurmountable costs of these things. So this is the main value that you get from something like that.
Yeah, it's almost like hiding the technology behind the user experience. And I think that's what Zero Knowledge is finally starting to do and looks promising to be able to solve, which is what large enterprises are really interested in. I wanted to call out something that Alex said there, and we've realized this. We have a whole support strategy for Zero Knowledge, and that's that GPUs are coming back, not really for mining, but for the computational abilities for Zero Knowledge proofs. And that's a resource that if you go out there today in the market and you need a lot of GPUs for computation, GPUs are somewhat hard to find, and they're not really the ones that you can that Bitcoin and Ethereum miners are using. And so one of the values we really see with the Microsoft partnership is Microsoft has a huge amount of GPUs. They have a whole AI strategy, and we see that as being a fundamental requirement to supporting the Zero Knowledge space. So, Vasilis, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Actually, before we jump into the AI thing, just a comment on what Alex was saying. And everyone here in the room who has worked one way or another on enterprise or SaaS, they will understand what I'm going to say, which is that sometimes we need to double click on some words. For example, the word user. In enterprise, there are three kinds of users, right? The developer, the end customer, or the consumer, but it's also the buyer. So it's what we call BDM, the business decision maker, right? 10 years ago, when you were trying to sell cloud, you were usually selling the cloud to the IT person of the company, right? Now you're selling to the CFO, to the CMO, right? When Web3 will become so mature, where you will have to sell to the CMO of Starbucks, it will be in a situation where I think we will all be happy. So I just want to make that comment. Now, about GPUs, I think you have all been following the space about AI, generative AI, ChatGPT. We're very proud about our collaboration and partnership with OpenAI. Look, it's a scarce resource, and this is where the cloud companies, and again, I have a huge respect for Google, for AWS. I think this is one of the main values that those companies can bring to Web3 when it comes to scalability. And if we want to discuss about AI and Web3, I do see those two forces creating something amazing, things that we cannot even think right now. But I have seen some early, I would say, use cases which are truly exciting.
Yeah, we did some tests with ChatGPT where we were wondering if ChatGPT could deploy a node for us. And there was some scripting that ChatGPT was able to produce that we were like, wow, this is actually a really, really interesting that an AI chatbot has the ability to start building scripts. And we started looking at that like, could this technology be used to automate smart contracts, to interface with the blockchain? I think what we're seeing here
for sure
is definitely a convergence of all these things. And I think that, from our perspective, like the tech scene has had like these like technologies that start working together, right? Like we had the internet and then the smartphone, and kind of the smartphone adoption really made the sharing economy work. And now we're seeing AI and Web3 start to we're in the very baby steps of them working together. But I think that's what we have a strategy around that. And we definitely think that with a combination of Zero Knowledge proofs, of supporting protocols like zkSync, and then working with Microsoft, that we could get there.
For sure. It's an exciting space. I think people who approach AI and Web3 in silos, they lose the big picture. When you combine technologies, this is where the magic happens. You mentioned things like smart contract development. It can be through a copilot, right? We have that in GitHub. Other companies are doing that with other LLMs, and of course, innovation is welcome. It could be developers building smart contracts 10 times faster, right? It could be an indexer on a blockchain having the ChatGPT, and you can ask all kinds of questions. Again, these are Horizon 1 use cases. Imagine the things we could do in the future. But hopefully we will build the future together. So that's the idea.
Yeah, I think you said something earlier there too that I think was really key, is that you guys at Azure have seen that often the persona you're selling to is a CFO. And that's like one reason at Ankr we recognize. I think it's kind of been this narrative like, will node providers be off the cloud? Will they be on the cloud? And I think that key there is really, really important. That oftentimes, like by partnering with the clouds, we can help that adoption happen faster because. Yes. Those customers can use their Azure computing credits for Web3 services through Ankr, and they can access zk infrastructure. They can access zkSync. We can deploy that to Azure, leverage those customers there. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, there's another element in our partnership, which and the same applies again for AWS, for Google. I don't want to make it very centric to Microsoft. Is the idea of a marketplace, right? Yeah. Again, for those who are not very familiar with the enterprise space. Enterprise marketplaces are currently the environments where most of the B2B transactions take place, right? Like we have seen more than 50% of the transactions happening on the marketplace. So a marketplace is like an app store for enterprise. So having node solutions, zk solutions on the marketplace can make the adoption super fast, literally with one-click deployment. Yep. So this is where we want to go. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and I want to talk to Alex a little bit too and get into some of the narratives. So earlier we said that this year we've seen zero knowledge be very hyped. So, how do you see kind of like do you see like zk EVM as a competitor? Like how do you see the rest of the space and how you guys differentiate in that space?
Sure. So with the way we look at the space now is it's very small in its very early stages. What we're doing right now is we're trying to replicate the experience people have on layer 1 to make the onboarding very easy. But that's not where we're going to stop because you cannot really be, like with the technology goes forward, you don't want to be binding yourself to some legacy baggage that you have to carry on forever. You want to experiment, so we're building things like LLVM compiler from Solidity, which taps into this massively mature LLVM ecosystem and will allow us to later add other languages such as Rust or Move or anything else more modern to write smart contracts in a more expressive way. So you can actually leverage this potential for much larger computation that is possible on zk technologies. So we don't see we see all the projects that are trying to build zk solutions now as experiments, and we tend to think about it as a marathon, not a sprint.
Right.
It's not about like building something now, like whoever launches first is going to get the market share. Like it's about the right mature technology that is going to be there long term.
Yeah. Do you think we'll see like, there's a lot of talk in the early days of kind of the layer ones that there'll be only one layer one. And we've talked the last couple of days here at ETH Denver and at this Interrupt Summit about how we are in this multi-chain, interchain future. Do you think it's like a winner take all with zero knowledge, or will everyone kind of have a zero knowledge strategy or chain? Like, how do you see that?
That's a really interesting topic. So I definitely agree that the future is multi-chain.
Yep.
It's physically not possible to process all of the world's value transactions on a single monolithic system, just like internet is not built on one server or even on one data cluster. Yep. So there will be many systems, and they have to be seamlessly interoperable. It's clear that this interoperability will be based on zero knowledge proofs. It's just the most mature, the most fitting technology for bridging these trustless systems without introducing intermediate assumptions. Now, how exactly this architecture is going to look like, whether there's going to be like one single settlement layer for all of those chains, or whether the chains are going to remain separate, we can argue. Like there are different points of view on this. I personally tend to think that we will observe some form of consolidation of the chains on the most decentralized fundamental layer one base, like which I think is likely to be Ethereum, simply because it makes bridging much more efficient. Like you don't have to rely, like when you have two separate blockchain systems, completely separate, with separate set of validators, fully sovereign, you can't really bridge between them. What you can do is like not take assets from here and send them over here, and they disappear on the first system. That's not how it works. You take these assets, you freeze them on the first system, and you create a representation on the other one, and you can transact back, but it's always parked here. Like you park your car, you get another car, and you can walk over the bridge, you get another car on the different space, and you use it. And that is not really, like, this is hard to scale. This is hard to scale beyond multiple hubs. When you have one single system where everything is settling on, that's easy. You can actually have these bridges that move on between these chains. But so yeah, this is my view for now. We'll see how it actually evolves.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think that's going to be a key. If with this multi-chain, we've seen chains succeed in almost like programming languages, where there's kind of pros and cons to different chains, and there's different users. We see, Binance has done an amazing job onboarding literally hundreds of millions of users to BNB chain, right? We see US and Europe. There's this amazing decentralization that is taking for new devs in this space is like, well, what chain should we deploy on? And it's hard to answer because we're pretty neutral, and there's so many factors to consider, like, can your application handle Ethereum gas fees, right? Like, or where's your primary user base? Where are you getting traction at? And I think it seems like zero knowledge and how that's going to work is going to really eliminate that from the conversation and just make it so deploy where there's decentralization and you can go anywhere.
I agree, and the example you brought with Binance is really interesting because we see lately more big players realizing that bridging is really the core issue that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
It's not the scalability. We're going to solve scalability with zero knowledge proofs, with rollups, but bridging is something you can't really solve unless you do it right in the beginning. So we see Coinbase, for example, deploying on Ethereum, in like specifically quoting the concerns about bridging. So it doesn't matter if they are on one rollup or the other, because they are going to be natively bridgeable between the users of Ethereum. But they chose not to create their own sovereign chain, but instead tap into this emerging ecosystem, which I think is a very interesting sign.
Yeah, that combo between the rollup technology with the layer 2s and the zero knowledge, it seems really powerful. And it seems like 2023 is shaping up that this will be the year of layer 2s. What do you think about that?
I definitely agree. I couldn't agree more. Moreover, it's going to be the year of zkVMs.
Yeah.
This is where like we had layer 2s for quite a while. We had technologies like optimistic rollups that today give a significant boost of scalability by a factor of 10x, 20x. With zkVMs that will be mature by the end of this year, will have a factor of much higher, because it's hard to say, because depending on the use case, you like some things will be 10x cheaper, some things will be 1000x cheaper, like Oracle updates, for example.
Right. Yeah, I'm curious, Vasily, we're just have a minute or so left here, but how does that kind of conversation play in with those enterprise users that you talk to literally every day? I know you're leaving here and going to customer meetings. Are they excited about zero knowledge? Is it not even on their radar yet? Like, where are we at with that?
First of all, we receive similar questions, the ones that Alex said, hey, Microsoft, in which chain we should be building? And of course, our position is neutral, right? But it's a very good signal on the lack of maturity and even the knowledge. They have heard about zero knowledge, so we have to educate them a little bit. But look, I think hopefully those things, the plumbing of Web3 will not be an issue in 2 years.
Yeah.
And you will have to discuss about use cases and how to bring business users to blockchain. But right now, they're all asking about scalability. They're all asking about security.
Yep.
And I know we have 30 seconds. One more thing that Alex said, which I think is very important. We all want to grow the space, the Web3 space, but it's better to do it slowly with the right initiatives and the right, I would say, mindset, rather than going fast and break the whole thing, right? So I'm also very bullish about the future of Web3 in 2023. And yeah, it's time to build. Like, literally, it's time to build. Yeah.
Well, we're excited to work with both of you and support, both Microsoft and zkSync and Manor Labs. So I think we're out of time here. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it. And all three of us are on Twitter. If you have any questions, we can be reached on Twitter.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.